steadily it rises. Public preference for Lincoln Continental as the symbol for today's luxury motoring.
Hey, it's ODB, the Lincoln Addict, with another listing review. This one's Bring a Trailer, and if you've been in the market for a black Lincoln in a very desirable year, this is probably going to be the car for you. I did a quick scan prior to starting this review, and this is a really well-presented car, and let's jump right in. So 65 Lincoln Continental Convertible, if we go to Hagerty and you log in, you'll see the current price listings between concourse and fair condition. I do believe this car will come in between $65,000 and $75,000. It easily could be higher because of the desirable color and it being at 65, but that's my gut feeling right now. If we take a look, you got the front three-quarter shot here. You got a little bit of information about the car. Bring a Trailer does a fantastic job of presenting their listings. You submit all the information to them, and they really kind of piece together the story. It does say 1,100 miles shown. We know the odometer would have rolled over. We'll talk about how we can kind of tell that from the photos, but we're not 100% sure. Is it 100,100 or 101,100 miles? We just don't know for sure. You'll take a look here again, top up, windows up photo, and then you've got top down, windows down. My understanding, watching other people's videos, you can opt when you post your vehicle on Bring a Trailer, they will send someone out to take photos if for an extra fee, if that's something that you want to do, which is good stuff. Here, it mentions the seller notes areas of corrosion on the trunk lid, so we'll look at that. And again, top down, kind of side shot there. Here you see the interior. There's a couple things that stick out that we'll talk about, and you get a good kind of driver position there. We see it's not a tilt column car. I think there was a question about that. I don't know if the listing said that. And if it did, it had been updated because there was a comment about that. We can see there's a little missing cap here. This is something you could pick up from the usual suspects there on the different knobs. Very minor. We see the MEL 430, of course. We do see that it has AC, which is fantastic. That's typically going to add 10% to this value. So, if you've got a $72,000 car, just as an example, there's $7,000 extra that typically is going to go on top of it. They do a good job of kind of reinforcing some of the things that have been completed. The big seller on this one is it's a triple black car, so black paint, black interior, and a black top. In addition, this DSO 52 Los Angeles, okay? That is key because what that tells us is it's a California car. Although it is in Michigan now, there are comments about that, and the gentleman kind of explains why it's up there now or how it made its way there. But this is fantastic if you're looking for a car and you have a DSO of California, the Los Angeles area, because, again, it probably spent most of its time in California at dry climate, and that's key. You see some of the documentation they have here. There are some videos, which is great. And again, Bring a Trailer probably does their work to try to get either their photographer or said seller to provide these. And this is so key. You want to see all this stuff working. He's in the car. He's got his foot on the brake. And that's something you have to do. I've talked about that in the past. He's showing the windows work. And he does show the auto drops working here. However, it is very clear that they do drop down, but they do not go back up. So when you just open the door there, you do want to see them drop, but they are supposed to go back up whenever the door is closed. That's something that you don't necessarily have to have unless you just want to have it fixed later on down the road. There would be an expense with that. So that's video number one. You see here, he shows the vent windows, which is great. Oftentimes people, forget to show those, and it's just kind of reinforcing what a nice car. Again, I want to give, an A+ to this seller. He's been active in the comments, and he's I mean, you can just tell he's being as truthful as he can with this car, based upon what we see. Here he shows a cold startup. I think the car had sat overnight, very similar to my 65. He said, "Hey," and you can see the odometer there. He said that even if the car sits a week, it fires right up. In the rare, circumstance, you got to kind of pump maybe once or twice, which is normal for an older car. But he also shows this driving video, and he's about 50 miles an hour. He says here, you can kind of see if this is great. The passenger kind of zooms in to kind of show how far or how fast they're driving. When I watch these videos and I see this listing and I see how nice it is where he's at, I just scratch my head and say, why are you selling this car? It is so nice. But hey, that's just the Lincoln addict in me. If we look through the photos, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time. I'm going to kind of go at a decent pace, again, because some of these videos get long, but I'll tell you this. Although it was mentioned this car was resprayed at some point, everything that I see presents really well. They're being very truthful about the car as far as I can tell. Again, I'm not tied to this seller in any way. Black cars are not easy to maintain. You may have realized that, or if you're a car fan, I could certainly say that they're not easy to maintain. I'm not a professional detailer, but you will see some of those challenges there with just black paint with some of the detailed photos that they share. I do want to point out, he does mention that the upholstery was redone, and I think he had Bring a Trailer mention it as vinyl just to be on the safe side. One thing that sticks out to me is it does not have the 4 Lincoln logos in the seats, and I am now having those remade. So if you have a 65, they are specific to 65, or if you were to buy this car and you wanted to put those in there or have the seats redone again, I can have those made to the exact size. My guy took some 65s or one and was able to fully replicate those in billet aluminum with the hook on the back, which is key for your upholsterer. So I clicked out of that there. That was one thing that kind of stuck out to me. I mentioned the little knob that was missing, the little cover. This is all kind of typical stuff that you're going to see on deck lids, but again, they're showing you all the imperfections of the paint. Black paint is, black paint is just it's tough to maintain. You're going to see all this little stuff. You could certainly take this to, I'm sure, a high-end detailer or detail it yourself, and make this thing look even nicer than it is. Again, some detailed photos here. It's hard to tell if this is just the clear coat. Is this, I don't know, polish? I didn't really kind of fully understand this. You can kind of see here it doesn't look perfect. Again, to paint black is not easy, and if this was painted, 15, 20 years ago-ish, it kind of, is showing a little bit there, its age. And you can kind of see some of that here. Now, again, if you watch some of the YouTube channels I watch, you'd be amazed at what people can do, even with, cars that have been sitting 40 years in terms of paint. So certainly this could be cleaned up, I'm sure. It's presented as a very nice driver. You see here some of the spider webbing, if you will, in the paint. That's typical for black. He does show close-ups of the tires, and it kind of reinforces. I had the same tires on my 64, and these are great tires. I think they're Coker, American Classic, and you see a little bit of age on them. That's something that, as a buyer, you'll probably end up, replacing the tires. Here is what you want to look at when, if someone were presenting this car as an example of it only has 1,000 miles, right? You could easily look at the brake pedal and the throttle pedal here, so for gas, if you will, and you can kind of see the wear and tear on it, and a lot of that is, how the person kind of has their foot sitting on it and whatnot. You see the normal little wear here in the corners of the brake pedal. So again, this presents, as, a 100,000-mile car in terms of the wear that I'm seeing. He does mention in the comments that this was a choke that was put in. He said he's never had to use it, but certainly in cold climates and things like that, to have a choke. This was a manual choke that someone installed while it was being serviced, which, not a bad thing necessarily, not factory, but certainly, out of the way. Here you see what I mentioned earlier, the little cover. They do mention AM, FM radio. This is not an FM radio. I'm sure most people wouldn't be concerned with that. However, he does mention in the comments it does have a CD player in the glove box, and I do believe that's why they presented it as AM, FM. He does say that that's how he plays his music through the car. You may have noticed when we were looking at the rear interior photos, you'll see there are some speaker pods underneath the seats, and those could easily be removed if that's not your flavor. But it is kind of cool because, again, these cars didn't have many speakers, and you would, if you're cruising and you want to listen to your music, having something to make it a little bit more loud versus just the speaker here and the speaker in the dash, which is not much. This is certainly something that you may enjoy, or you may opt to get rid of it. These are not the factory seat belts in the rear. I mentioned in the past, the rear seat belts are kind of a rare thing. The 65 that I own, Robert, shout out to Robert, he had acquired 65 rear seat belts and installed those. Again, this is not a deal breaker whatsoever. I'm just pointing it out. The good thing is, thumbs up, it has rear seat belts. You throw the family in there and whatnot, have the seatbelts on. So I just like to point that out as something that I've learned over the course of time. Looking at the photos again, they're showing all the different steps in the sequence with the top working. Now, being that this car was resprayed, the number one thing I would say is I would still try to have someone look at it. Now, of course, this one ends in a day. So, unless you knew someone in this area, you wouldn't, or you had already planned it this past week, you're not going to have someone go look at it necessarily. But this is typical. I've mentioned many times the deck lids, they will look like this here with some of the kind of the little bit of rust showing. It has to do with the adhesive that was used. And this is typical in all these different Lincolns. So I wouldn't say to be concerned. Again, I've been on site before with the great John Cashman, and you can kind of take your fist and close it, and you can kind of, hit on this lightly, right, with the side of your fist. And if you'll hear this kind of sprinkled down in terms of how much rust is in there. Again, you're not going to damage anything. You're going to do it on this bracing, but this is a normal look for these, and it wouldn't be something to be too concerned. What it will eventually do is you will get little holes that will rust on the opposite, so on the outer skin, so to speak. I've got to fix my 64. It's got a little bit of that building, and there's a couple ways to do it. You'd have to have a good body shop, really kind of get in here. It's kind of a big job, right? Because you got to take the deck lid off and all that. It's a whole nother story. But again, I just wouldn't want you to be concerned with this. It is the normal amount that you would typically see. The same goes for here. So this is often kind of considered the package tray. So on a kind of normal sedan, this is where the package tray would be, right? And I guess back in the day, people put their packages there, right? It's just always known as the package tray. On the convertibles, this is a key component, and if you look even at very, very nice cars, you'll often see this little line of corrosion, a little bit of surface rust and things like that. That's typically normal. You could, if you wanted to go next level, I've seen Lincoln Land, for their clients, remove these for a body shop to go through and just, go to town and make this thing totally perfect. But again, this is standard what you're going to see. The other thing that I like is it's got the trunk kit in it. Oftentimes you see these cars and they're pretty thrashed and, everything's been removed, but this has that trunk kit. It also has these covers. So for 65, these are specific. They're getting harder to find and they're getting more expensive. So you could easily pay, I've seen people pay $250 to $500 for these cover pieces. And again, they are, I guess decorative, if you will. It kind of covers the stuff. But again, if you have a nice car like this, you want to have everything there with it. And you can kind of see there how it looks. Here is showing the passenger side, so this is where you got your pump and your solenoids. The listing also mentions that the top had been gone through, fluid flush and things like that, so it's great. Okay, so what do we see here? A couple things. Number one, it's got the 2-port. So I've talked many times about the importance of having the 3-port. If this car runs and drives, then hey, it might be totally fine. We have seen, though, over the course of time, most people will tell you that the 2 ports are not as good. Not going to go down the bunny trail, but just know that it can cause vapor lock, and I think it depends too the climate. If you're in a very hot place, although it seems like everywhere now in the summer is hot. Number two, it does appear to me that this, and someone can keep me honest, this does appear to be the non-AC fan. It does not have the clutch, and whether this was I wouldn't say it was a non-AC car because it's got the AC, but even my 64, when I first got it, it had a wonky fan on it. And I just think over the course of time, maybe someone ordered the wrong fan or whatever. But if it's an AC car, there was a gentleman the other day, and I didn't look up his name before I started this. He had reinforced to me, so thanks, and I'll give you a shout-out in a future video, that the non-AC cars did not have the fan shroud here. So there's no fan shroud, all right? The importance of that is typically if you're going to have a fan, and especially like here in Florida, if I didn't have a fan shroud, and even though I have the AC fan and the clutch, it's going to move a lot of air, but you really want that air to kind of stay in that I don't know, I'll call it a vortex, if you will, kind of right across that radiator. I've driven vehicles before where there's not, I drove a truck, I think my Suburban years ago, and there was a short period where I didn't have the fan shroud in it for whatever reason, and it would want to kind of overheat, right? Because it's not pushing that air right across that radiator. So for whatever reason, maybe this one had it, and someone took it off, and they didn't put it back on, and they changed the fan. But that's the number two thing I wanted to point out. This isn't deal breaker by any means. I would say, get the correct fan with the clutch, and then you could get, this is a metal fan shroud. You can call Lincoln Land, places like that. You're probably going to pay, $400 or $500 for it ish. You might be able to find one for a little bit cheaper, but I know Lincoln Land, they said they're getting harder to find. You also have the single master cylinder reservoir. So my suggestion is eventually, whoever ends up with this car, definitely get it updated to the dual reservoir, and that's for safety in case your master cylinder goes out. You want to still have brakes. So wanted to point that out. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I did want to mention the DSO for California. This extra tube, I'm pretty certain, I'm about 95% certain, this was a California-only thing, so it had to do with the emissions, and so you don't always see this. It's not a bad thing whatsoever, but I did want to point out that kind of reinforces that it's a California car. All right, so we're just looking through. Now, there are not a lot of photos underneath. However, the photos that I did scan through, this looks typical, right? This is all, you don't see any rust. I mean, this is like heavy-duty metal all in here. I don't see anything that's sticking out to me that, would be a red flag. A lot of this kind of wetness, if you will, has to do with the normal leaks on these cars and whatnot. To me, what I see here is a well-presented car. This is a driver car, and this is a car that someone's going to buy and really, really enjoy. Here's a bunch of receipts. Again, this is a fantastic thing that Bring a Trailer does, and they do get more expensive in here. This one's $7,200. There was a discount, so it was about an $8,000 bill, and this actually is a very well-written description from November of last year, talking about going through the top and having an issue with the lock cylinders of up in the front and the header panel. But he must have gotten all that fixed. But again, fantastic read there in terms of some of the service done. This was a rip in the seat. Again, he's being very truthful on this car. So what I like about it is it's 65, so one of the most desirable years. It's black, okay? I like black Lincolns, but I'm telling you, there's some people it's a deal breaker. They have to have black. So I totally get it. This is triple black, very desirable, plus it's a 65. Fantastic car, presented very, very well. Whenever I say like it's not a perfect car, believe me, there's rarely are you going to find a perfect car, okay? Almost all these cars are solid, but this one's a really, really good one, I think. There's a couple little things, again, the seats maybe stick out to me. It's missing the one little thing on one of the knobs. Okay, that's small. The fan shroud, where's that? Why is the fan different? Again, minor things, okay? In closing, I will say that do your due diligence if you're looking to bid on this car. Look at the comments. Okay, the gentleman that's selling it is doing a great job of getting in here and responding to people. He talks about the AC does not work. He talks about, as far as I know, the stereo and the dashboard is original. Someone probably asked about, hey, it's not FM. He mentions that, of course. He mentions the choke underneath. So that's fantastic, right? Being active in there. And I think, although this car is not perfect, it's certainly going to bring 65, 75 grand, maybe even more. And someone's going to really enjoy it. Maybe they'll dial it in and make it even a better car would be fantastic. The last thing I'll mention is the one thing we don't know and we'll never know from these photos is when it was resprayed, right? So that repaint, was there any Bondo used and things like that? The only way you're going to know that is have a body guy look at it. But from what I can tell, presents very, very well. Awesome car, awesome year, black. I could even live with a couple little things I pointed out, although I would probably go the extra mile and knock a few of those things off the list. But the great thing is if you buy the car, that'll be your opportunity to go through and do those things. So if you get a chance, check out Lincoln Addict. You could just Google it. Lincoln Addict, or you could go to lincolnaddict.com. And I had Brian Fuller on this last episode, and he's on 2 TV shows. But most importantly, he's a Lincoln addict, big Lincoln fan. He owns 2 Lincolns, including a convertible and a coupe, both 60s. He's a great guy. Check it out. You can also listen here on YouTube. So I'll try to link it maybe as the last, the video you should watch next. You can literally listen to it. It batches over from Podbean right here to YouTube. Check it out. Have a safe weekend. And just remember, this one ends at the time of this recording in 20 hours. So I'll be glued on Sunday to see what it comes in at. What do you think it's going to come in at? Leave a comment below. Stay on the rise. We out of here.